Hare Krishna. I'm Krishna Endudas, the founder of Successful Vaishnavas, where we help Hare Krishna devotees to boldly follow their dreams so they can live abundantly and make a massive difference through Krishna consciousness using their own unique talents. Today I'd like to discuss a question that came up on Facebook recently. And that question is, what do we mean by success? It's a very natural question. This program is called Successful Vaishnavas. So it naturally begs the question, well, what do you mean successful? What is success? So in the dictionary, success is defined as the accomplishment of an aim or purpose. It's one definition. Another definition is the attainment of popularity or profit. So the first definition is very vague. It's not saying exactly what aim or purpose is worth achieving. So we need to think about what is the aim or purpose that we're trying to accomplish in Krishna consciousness. And the second definition that they've given, the attainment of popularity or profit, is not really what we talk about when we talk about success in Krishna consciousness. For a materialistic person, this would be one of the main aims. How to be rich and famous. It's interesting that one of my friends was talking to another devotee, and this devotee was saying, oh yeah, my children are very successful. And then after a little bit of discussion, we found that what he meant was that they have good jobs and their families are quite stable. But these children were not practicing Krishna consciousness. So are they really successful? Or are they just successful grihamadis? Successful materialists? So Lord Chaitanya mentions in Shikshastakam, Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarim, that he said he's not interested in becoming rich and famous, and he's not interested in being popular with women. He just wants to serve Lord Krishna. And that's the same objective for us as well. Our ultimate goal is pure, unalloyed devotion to Krishna, without any selfish motive for ourselves, without any desire for sense gratification, without any desire to become one with God or any of these selfish motivations. Prabhupada was once asked at a Sunday feast, what pleases you most? And he answered, when you become a lover of Krishna. So this is ultimately our goal. The definition of pure bhakti is given in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and this is ultimately our definition of success. Anya bilashita sunyam jnana kama anavritam anukulena krishnanu Shilanam Bhakti Rutama. So the ultimate success is pure bhakti, unmotivated, not mixed with karma or jnana, and it's acting favourably towards Krishna. So this is our objective. Another aspect that we could look at as far as symptoms of someone who's Krishna conscious is ideal character. The Nectar of Instruction, first verse, describes the ideal character of someone who's qualified to spread Krishna consciousness all around the world. It talks about self-control and discipline. Vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, etc. So this is another aspect. It also goes on in the Nectar of Instruction to say that the highest level of devotee is one who is devoid of the propensity to criticize others. And then it continues on to describe that the ultimate state of Krishna consciousness is 24 hours a day absorbed in hearing and remembering Krishna. Just like that other sloka. Always remember Krishna and never forget him. Everything else, every other rule is secondary to these two rules. So That's our ultimate goal. Now, one model, which I think is useful for understanding about how the other kinds of goals that we might have in our life connect with this, is a model called be, do, and have. So the highest level is be. It's about our state of consciousness and our character that we've just described. It's about our motivation. So our objective of everything that we do and have is to be Krishna conscious. Our ultimate goal is total, unalloyed, spontaneous, loving devotion to Krishna. At the practicing stage that most devotees are at, our consciousness we may not have that spontaneous love yet. I know I'm not at that level yet for sure. So my consciousness in doing these activities of Krishna consciousness is, this is something that will please Krishna, and I'm doing it with the hope that I'll become purified and come to that highest stage where I will be totally devoted to Krishna without anything selfish in the way. So this is the stage of practice. When we're not at the stage of perfection, we have that consciousness that we're doing things that help us to get to the ultimate goal. Now, in order to be Krishna conscious, to have that state of consciousness, we need to do certain things. Now, in theory, one can become Krishna conscious in a moment. Just change his thoughts. But because of our conditioning for many, many lifetimes, it's very difficult to do that. So we need to go through a cleansing process where we retrain ourselves and develop new habits of thinking and action so that we can come to that state of Krishna consciousness. So this is where the doing part connects with the being part. Sometimes some devotees may say, you don't need to preach, you just need to think of Krishna. But actually the preaching and the other activities of Krishna consciousness, such as the 9 processes of bhakti, associating with devotees, following Vaishnava etiquette, even wearing clothes that remind us of Krishna. These types of things are very helpful for transforming our current material consciousness into Krishna consciousness. Just like with the dress, when we put on tilak, it's a conscious action to remind ourselves that our body is a temple of Krishna. And the same thing, if we put on a dhoti, in the Western countries, it's not clothes that we would normally wear. The only people that wear dhotis in the Western countries are Hare Krishnas. And by putting on a dhoti, it reminds us that, oh yes, I am a devotee of Krishna. I'm a Hare Krishna. And these are different reminders, different actions that help to trigger our consciousness that our objective is to surrender ourselves to Krishna. Now, also included in the do section, some of the things that we do to help us to become Krishna conscious are use the talents that we already have. For example, if someone's a good musician, they can use that talent to play the guitar in kirtan. And this is something that Prabhupada encouraged devotee Murari to do in a letter in the very early days. There are some quotes that I'm mentioning in here, and I'm not giving all the references right now, but if you download the transcription, which you'll find on the website, Successful Vaishnava's website, below this particular video, you can find all the references to the letters and the Shastra quotes that we've mentioned. So, using our talent for Krishna consciousness, dovetailing the skills that we have. If someone's a good speaker, they can speak for Krishna. If someone's good at sports and maybe they've been a sportsman already and then they become a devotee, then because they're well known within that field, they can use that fame that they have, also to dedicate to Krishna. Just like with George Harrison, he was already famous. Prabhupada didn't tell him, oh, you should stop playing your music and just go in the temple and become a brahmachari. No, he encouraged him and said, okay, these are the talents that you have, use it for Krishna. And we can see what wonderful things he produced for the service of Krishna. Another action that we will do is preaching, distributing books, or business. And business is a way of generating money that can be used in Christian service as well. Which brings us on to the third level, which is have. When I talk about have, this is really the external results of our actions. So, for example, when we do business, the result of business is profit, and it's money. The result of book distribution is that books are distributed, and you can put a number on these things. They're quite tangible results. It's the number of people that who ate prasadam at the program that was held, for example. And sometimes these things might seem external. I mean, these things are external. And if our focus is totally on this, and we forget that our ultimate goal is to develop our Krishna consciousness, then that's a problem. However, we shouldn't neglect setting goals in these areas, because Prabhupada set the example for us in that way. He would tell the book distributors, well done, you distributed that many books, now double it. He would push the devotees to actually produce more results. Now this seems like a contradiction. In the Bhagavad Gita it says don't be attached to the results. But also in the Bhagavad Gita we can see that Krishna was telling Arjuna, you fight and you win the battle. He had a very clear result that he was asking Arjuna to produce. And this is a balancing act that we need to be careful about when we set goals and it gives us impetus to take action. We always need to remember that the ultimate goal of all of our activities is 1, to please Krishna, and 2, to help us become more Krishna conscious. So when we have that consciousness and we set big goals, it's very helpful. But if we set these goals and then the goal, that result rather, becomes the goal and we forget of the ultimate purpose, that's when we can get problems. I'm going to be the biggest book distributor. I'm going to distribute the most books. I'm going to earn the most amount of money. And then it becomes a pride thing that we're doing it for our own gratification. That's when problems arise. And that's why we always need to keep in our mind the ultimate goal of becoming Krishna conscious. And these goals that we set are just to help us do activities that allow us to get to that state. So, Prabhupada mentioned many times this principle of yukta vairagya, that whatever resources are available, they should be used for Krishna. They shouldn't be rejected. So if someone is capable of doing business and making a lot of money, and that can be used for Krishna consciousness, that should be encouraged. Once again, with the caveat that business, that the ultimate purpose is developing Krishna consciousness. And if that pursuit of that goal overtakes the person and they neglect their spiritual practices and it's not helpful for their Krishna consciousness, then it should be rejected. So once again, the ultimate principle Prabhupada mentioned many times is accept what's favourable and reject what's not favourable. This nectar of instruction is really the ultimate success guide, I feel. Whenever I speak on these topics, I always keep coming back to nectar of instruction. But this is a guiding principle. Accept what's favourable, reject what's not favourable. So we can see someone like Ambarish Prabhu. He was from a very wealthy family, and he was involved in a very successful business, and he was able to maintain his Krishna consciousness, and to this day he's still a wonderful Krishna conscious devotee. That's very successful, and that's what we were looking for. Whereas we see sometimes other devotees get so absorbed in just the thought of making money that they forget about chanting their rounds and associating with devotees, and they fall away. So another thing to think about in terms of the externals, like if you ask a regular person in the street, what's your goal? Many times they'll say, I want to have a big house, I want to have a big car, an expensive car, and that kind of thing. Naturally we'll say, well, that's very superficial, and that's not a very high level of setting goals. A higher level, which is more about the do part of it, is, I want to be able to help people. I want to feed the poor. I want to dig wells in Africa. Different things like this is a higher level because it's coming from the platform of service. And then the higher level, of course, is to develop our character so that we can serve Krishna with pure love. But even these external things like wanting a nice house and having a happy family, sometimes these things are also required for someone to progress in their Krishna consciousness. And this is where there becomes a tension sometimes, that in Prabhupada's books he talks about a very, very high ideal, and most of us are a really long way away from there at this point. And to try to jump from where we are to that ultimate high level may not be practical. The most classic example is someone's a brahmachari and they're told, you don't need to get married. That's Maya. You're just trying to satisfy your senses, and you should stay brahmachari and just only serve Krishna. Now, in theory, that's great, but we can see in practice that the majority of people need to get married. And we could say, well, isn't that materialistic? But the thing is that if that person doesn't get married, they're not likely to be peaceful in their mind. And a certain amount of material comfort, like having a family life, some children, and a reasonable house to live, allows that person some peace of mind to be able to progress in their Krishna consciousness. Another example is about money. If someone's struggling to get money and they're always in anxiety because they don't know how they're going to pay their bills and they're not doing well financially, that can be a real distraction from Krishna consciousness. Whereas if a person has a stable income, it can give them the peace of mind that allows them to put their mind off the money. They can, okay, the money's there, I don't have to worry. Now let me develop my Krishna consciousness. So although we might think that wanting to have a nice house and family might seem material, if we look at the overall scheme of things, for most people, having a reasonably comfortable life is very helpful to progress. Krishna consciousness is meant for austerity, but up to a point. Like, if someone was told that, you have to live in a grass hut and, you're not allowed to have air conditioning, then people would just freak out because their basic human or material needs are not met. Then it's very hard for them to focus on Krishna consciousness. But if they can have not an extravagant life, but a life where their basic needs are met, it makes it a lot easier to progress. And that's different for every person. If someone's grown up in a village, they may be used to a very simple life. If someone's coming from like a royal family or a very wealthy background, they may not be comfortable unless there's a certain standard of living. And that's fine. It's different for every person. And even in Lord Chaitanya's time, it was like that. We had Maharaj Prataparudra, Pundarik Vidyanidhi, very wealthy devotees. And they had a very opulent lifestyle, and yet they were Krishna conscious. And then there was Kolavecha Sridhar, who's a very poor person, and he was also very Krishna conscious. So the needs that each person has is very individual. And the ultimate point is we need to understand where we are. We need to know where we're going and choose what to do according to what's favourable for us in our particular situation. It's very individual. So I think I kind of went on that point a little bit, but I'll get off my soapbox now. The basic point is that our ultimate goal is about consciousness and motivation and character. And in order to develop that, there's certain activities that we need to do. For example, chanting Hare Krishna. And then there's other activities that may be different for different people, depending on their nature. Some people may be musicians and others may be business people, or they may have different talents. And so according to those different factors, the different situation of the person, they'll engage in different activities that help them to progress. And then in order to help us to progress, we set goals, results that we're trying to achieve, but without being attached to them, understanding that they're just something that help us to focus our mind, to do the activities, to become Krishna conscious. And ultimately, all of these be, do, and have are very individual. Where am I now? What's the ultimate goal? And what's going to help me go from where I am to ultimately becoming Krishna conscious? So, one question which might come to mind is, so how does this connect, this definition of success, how does it relate to successful Vaishnavas? Well, basically the idea of successful Vaishnavas started out with the idea of interviewing successful devotees. And once again, what do we mean by that? What do we mean by successful devotees? It means that devotees have produced results. It's very hard to know exactly what someone's motive is in their heart, but we can look at activities that they've done which are favourable for Krishna consciousness, that if other people did the same thing, would be good for our movement and good for ourselves individually. So, for example, if someone has a successful preaching program, it makes sense that we find out some of the things that they did and what was their thinking that enabled them to be successful in distributing many books or distributing many plates of prasadam, or in getting people to take up the practices of Krishna consciousness. So these are some very tangible things that we can observe. Also in the Nectar of Instruction purport, Prabhupada talks about that the Uttama, the highest level devotee, is someone who's always absorbed in Krishna conscious thoughts and thinking of how to spread Krishna consciousness. So we're looking for devotees who have tried to spread Krishna consciousness and have produced results while doing that. Another kind of successful devotee is someone who's been very steady in their service. They may not necessarily be a preacher as such, but they may have been a pujari for many years, very steadily, or a temple president, or they may have just been very steady in their sadhana for many, many years. So to interview these devotees and find out from them how they were able to maintain that steadiness over that period of time is very helpful for people like me that wants to progress. So one of the principles of Krishna consciousness, not just Krishna consciousness, this is the universal principles of success, is to find out someone who's already been successful and learn from them. It's the guru principle. So in our Krishna consciousness movement today, we have devotees who have done wonderful things and who have reached a high level of Krishna conscious understanding and practice. So if we can learn from them how they did it, it can shortcut or make it easier for us to also achieve success and hopefully avoid mistakes that we might otherwise make. So this is how the idea of successful Vaishnavas came up. And then along with this idea is the idea of taking some of the general principles from interviewing these devotees, as well as the broader field of success and achievement and character development, and bringing it together into a program that devotees can apply in a systematic way. Like from interviewing devotees one by one, we can pick up different ideas, like piecemeal, and that can be helpful. But then if we can integrate it together into a program that devotees can systematically apply in their life, then that helps to take it to an even higher level. And so this is once again coming back to that principle we talked about before of using whatever resources there are and applying it towards Krishna consciousness. So just as Prabhupada set goals, he said, double it in book distribution. Or he said, you need to print all of these Chaitanya Charitamritas within 2 months. He made those challenges. And also, he was pushing the devotees, distribute this number of books and, collect money from it. Get rich. Get money for the society by selling the books. So he was using those tactics or those strategies to inspire the devotees to serve. So if we can also look at strategies that have been used effectively by other people and then apply it towards Krishna consciousness, that's Yukta Vairagya. It's using it for the ultimate goal. So, in conclusion, what is success? Success is pure, unalloyed, spontaneous, loving devotion to Krishna. It's a state of consciousness. And in order to get to that state of consciousness, there's actions that we can do that help us to develop that frame of mind. And in order to do those actions, we may need to make arrangements for ourselves according to our own situation, according to our own material needs or conditioning, and our talents. And look at all of those things in a very individual way and apply the process of Krishna consciousness, understanding where we're starting from and where we want to go to. And that's why, once again, there's this principle of the Guru, that the Shastra gives the broad principles, but it requires guidance, how to apply it for our own specific situation. So that's what Successful Vaishnavas is here for. It's to learn from devotees who've already been successful and to try to learn from them their mindset and strategies that they use to be successful. And then to create programs that can help devotees to systematically work towards this ultimate goal of being pure, unalloyed lovers of Krishna. So, that's my perspective on what success means in Krishna consciousness. What do you think? Put your comments in the box below this video and let's see what everyone has to say about what it means to be successful in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.